A time has come to an end. After more than a decade on the air, The Flash will end with its 9th season, which is set to start filming this fall and air in early 2023. It's hard to imagine what a superhero TV landscape would look like without this show, which has influenced so many others with its big hearts, bright tone, and caring stories. Even though Season 9 of The Flash only has 13 episodes, this means that the CW's flagship superhero show can still go out on its own terms. Will the final season of The Flash deliver on a long-held fan theory? In February, The Flash will return to the CW for its last season. After 9 seasons of saving Central City, the Scarlet Speedster's race will be run. As Barry Allen makes one last run, fans hope that the series will wrap up a few loose ends, including the arrival of at least one of Barry and Iris's children with the announcement of a West Allen pregnancy in the final season. After all, we've already met and loved Nora, but fans have been hoping for one more thing since the show started: the appearance of Cobalt Blue, one of the Flash's biggest villains from the comics. Now that the show is coming to an end, fans are hoping that a long-held theory about Eddie Thawne could come true. Since it's been a while since Season 1, let's start with a bit of history. When The Flash first started, and even when the casting was announced, fans thought that Rick Cosnet's Eddie might be the show's version of Malcolm Thawne, Cobalt Blue, Barry Allen's twin brother who was taken from Nora Allen at birth and given to Charlene Thawne instead. This character is based on a comic book character. In the comics, the doctor who delivered the babies killed Charlene's baby by accident. To cover up his mistake, he took one of Nora's twins and told the Allens that one of their twins had died. The Thawnes were con artists. Malcolm had a hard childhood, found out the truth as an adult, became jealous of Barry, and got his power from a magical blue flame that let him steal anything he wanted, and a talisman he put his hatred for Barry into, becoming Cobalt Blue. Malcolm turns out to be one of Eobard Thawne's ancestors. What happened on The Flash? Obviously, that didn't happen in the first few seasons of The Flash. In fact, Season 1 ended with Eddie Thawne's death, and whenever we've seen Eddie since, it's been in a flashback, during a trip back in time, or as Deathstorm in Season 8. But the end of Season 8, even though Eddie seems to be dead for sure, raised a few eyebrows. In the season finale, Eobard Thawne, who now has superpowers from all the negative forces, is finally and permanently defeated when he tries to use too much power and kills himself. At the end of the episode, Barry and Iris got back together and talked about what happened. They wondered who the negative forces would choose as their next avatar and when they would do it. Then viewers see a lab in the year 2049 where a mysterious blue crystal lights up all of a sudden. Blue crystal, not unlike a blue flame talisman? Sounds a bit like Cobalt Blue if you think about it. And while Wallace didn't directly confirm that fans will finally see their theory come to life in the final season, he did hint that we've already seen one of the big bads for Season 9 at that moment, which comic nerds will already know. I can say this much: you've probably already seen one of the biggest bads for next year, right? We told you right there at the end, but I'll let you figure it out. Early this year, Wallace told comicbook.com, "I'd say that if you're a deep comics-obsessed nerd who does all your research, you probably know what's coming. But it's okay if you don't, because you'll want the audience to be surprised," which is something to look forward to. But we'll keep doing it like a graphic novel next year. At least 2 big bads will show up. I don't know how many episodes I'll have next year, so I don't know how many graphic novels I'll be able to write, but at least one of them will be about that crystal at the end of this episode. How could The Flash's final season bring in Cobalt Blue? If, however, the blue crystal is meant to be a reference to Cobalt Blue, then the only real question that remains is how Eddie fits into all of this. There are a few different ways things can play out, but the one with the highest probability is connected to the time frame. We've seen how tampering with the chronology may result in major shifts over the course of the show's run, and one thing that occurred in Season 8 but wasn't fully explained was how Nora and Bart traveled across time. This was one of the mysteries that remained unsolved at the end of the season. Following the events of Armageddon, the new season began with the West Allen children traveling back in time to 2014 in order to make necessary adjustments. It's possible that the choices they made in the past will have consequences that haven't fully manifested themselves just yet. This indicates that Eddie's death could be reversed, his origin could be altered, or he could just make a reappearance in the story. There's a wide variety of potential courses of action that could be investigated. The following is the authorized synopsis of the storyline for the season. After an action-packed confrontation with the Reverse Flash, The Flash returns for its 9th season 1 week later. Iris West Allen, played by Candace Patton, and Barry Allen, played by Grant Gustin, are reconciling and growing closer to one another than they've ever been before. Caitlin Snow, meta-empath Cecile Horton, the light-powered meta Allegra Garcia, brilliant tech nerd Chester P. Runk, and former cryogenics thief Mark Blaine must once again work together to protect Central City from a dangerous group of rogues led by a powerful new threat. However, as soon as the rogues are vanquished, a new treacherous adversary appears to put Barry Allen's noble legacy in jeopardy. In order to defend Central City one more time, Barry and Team Team Flash will have to engage in the most difficult combat they've ever faced. Next up, we talk about The Flash Season 9 fan theories and speculations. Barry and Iris start a family at last. Also, familiar faces return to the Central City. We already know that Barry and Iris have kids, and we've met Bart and Nora more than once on the show. We also know that the West Allens need to start a family soon because time travel has shown us how old they are in the version of Central City in the year 2049. And is there a more poetic way to end The Flash than to show the Flash family will always keep running, even though the show is over? Plus, Barry and Iris have been kept apart for years by being kidnapped, targeted by crazed killers, trapped in other dimensions, and otherwise kept from each other. They deserve a little bit of domestic bliss before the show ends. A pregnancy storyline could also give the show's last season a chance for some much-needed comedy, since I can't imagine that giving birth to speedster babies will be anything like giving birth to a normal baby. When it comes to characters coming back, we can't properly end The Flash without Cisco Ramon. It is just true. Cisco should be able to come back in some way for this last season. He was one of the original members of Team Flash and a key part of the cast that made the show what it is. I'm still shocked he missed Frost's funeral. Fair enough, Cisco doesn't have a huge amount of story to wrap up before the show ends, but fans should get to see Carlos Valdez and the original 3 members of Team Flash back in action together one last time, even if it's just for one episode. In The Flash's final episodes, it would be great if fan-favorite characters like Wally West, Sarah Lance, and Mia Queen show up to bring this version of the DC superhero universe to a close. Even the remaining Arrowverse shows, like Superman and Lois and Stargirl, take place on different Earths, so in a way, this is the end of an era. There are still some loose ends in the story, like the Legend's imprisonment and William's disappearance that need to be wrapped up. Finally, one last Reverse Flash face-off and an explanation of what has happened to Caitlin. Even though the Flash showrunner Eric Wallace says that Tom Cavanaugh's Reverse Flash really died in the Season 8 finale, Negative Part 2, we all know that's at best unlikely. How many times has Eobard Thawne died on the show? Just last season, how many times did he die? And in the end, can this show end without one more showdown between Barry Allen and his worst enemy? Doubtful. How the show will resurrect, clone, or bring another version of Reverse Flash from an alternate Earth or timeline is still unknown, but it seems like the safest way to guess what would happen during this last season. One of the few real cliffhangers from Season 8 is what will happen to Caitlin Snow, who spent the finale doing crazy scientist-style experiments on herself in a cryo chamber to try to bring back her dead sister Frost or make a copy of her. At the end of the episode, we don't know what or who she has become, but it's pretty clear that something pretty big has happened to her. Again. Will she come out of the chamber as another Frost, or just as Caitlin, whose ice meta abilities have finally been turned on? No matter how you feel about this storyline or how strange it is that the Flash can't decide if Frost exists or what her relationship with Caitlin is, I think we can all agree that it's finally time for this poor girl to get a break. Let's see her find peace in the show's last season, no matter what she's become. That could mean therapy, a new love interest, or just going back to her job as a scientist. She has been hurt and lost too much. The last season of the show will start on Wednesday, February 8th, 2023, and will have 13 episodes. Do you think Cobalt Blue will finally show up in the last season of The Flash? Use the comments to tell us what you think. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Until next time, cheers!